we get to talk about a fist fight between NFL coaches on the same staff, touching on the Dallas Cowboys, but actually involving the New York Giants. Oh, how juicy is that? Unfortunately, it's not all completely true. Mike Fisher reporting, of course, from here at the Star in Frisco, inside Cowboys headquarters, where we like to do our business. So here's the first report out of New York that Marc Colombo, old friend of ours, former Cowboy player, a standout player, of course, and then a very promising young coach before Mike McCarthy came here and changed the staff well within his rights. Marc Colombo packed up his suitcase and headed back east to go to work for Jason Garrett, who got the offensive coordinator job in New York under first-year coach Joe Judge. You can argue that it hasn't gone especially well on the field, while the Giants have their 3 wins, which is more than I thought they'd have by now. And so somebody's doing something right there, and good for them. The offensive line, young offensive line, not good, maybe in the process of being built. And Marc Colombo, I'd take Marc Colombo on my staff as a builder. But the first rumor is that Joe Judge went to Marc Colombo and either they got in a disagreement and then got in a fist fight, or that Judge fired him and then they got in a fist fight. And of course, my initial reaction is, and I've known Marc Colombo for a long time, when he played, he was 6'8", 315, with a coach's intellect, but a Boston street kid's attitude. You don't want to get in a fight with Marc Colombo. Now he's slimmed down. He's still 6'8", and probably, what do you think, 6'8", 270, I don't know, in his post-playing slim down weight, but he's still a bad man. So my first reaction to it was, Joe Judge got in a fight with Marc Colombo? Then Joe Judge has a death wish. Now, it turns out, here's the real story, the rest of the story. There was indeed a conflict inside Giants headquarters this week. And it certainly does have to do, in part, with the underperformance, at least in the mind of some Giants people, including maybe Joe Judge, of the offensive line. So the word is that we get is that Judge went to Colombo and said, we're making a change. I'm going to bring in another guy, and he's going to work alongside you. And I guess the other guy was the coach who's been in the league for 10 or 12 years, who was the other candidate for the offensive line job. And obviously Jason Garrett used his influence and said, no, we want Colombo. And now Joe Judge is saying, well, I want the other guy. So did he bring in to Colombo's office the idea of, I'm going to hire this other guy. You've been coaching for 2 years. I'm going to hire this other guy who's been coaching for, 12 years. And he's going to be your assistant? I don't think that's probably what happened. I think probably what happened is Colombo was basically being told that your authority to run the offensive line is being usurped. And we're going to bring in somebody who's going to with his 13 years of experience versus your 2, guess who's who. And we're saying the job isn't getting done well enough. I think one story, by the way, is Judge found himself having to spend too much time with the offensive line. Again, Colombo, young coach. And so in comes the idea of this other coach, and then comes the conflict. And I'm told that it was a verbal conflict, not a physical one. Good for everybody involved, but really good for Joe Judge. And this is where I'm going to tell you the story behind the story behind the story. So the Cowboys were at training camp some years ago, and Tony Romo threw an interception in practice. And Jay Ratliff, himself a big bad man, Jay Ratliff, 6'4", 287, found himself getting blocked, or somebody hit somebody. I think maybe on the interception, I guess it would make sense that it was the defensive player on the intercepting team, Jay Ratliff, who would have blocked Marc Colombo, and maybe a little too exuberantly for a summer practice at training camp. One way or the other, the two of them collided, the two of them ejected to each other, and a few pushes and shoves, and then Ratliff says, "I'll meet you after practice." Flagpole 3 o'clock is how we used to say it back in elementary school. I never showed up, but that's what the kids used to say to me. Flagpole, 3 o'clock. So we get to the end of the session, and everybody's going in the locker room. And Leonard Davis, remember Leonard Davis? Big man, big head, offensive lineman, comes up to Colombo and says, heads up. When you go turn the corner into our locker room, Ratliff is around the corner waiting for you. And he's going to sucker punch you. You're never going to see it coming. So, hey, good. That's good teammates. That's good offensive line teammates. Leonard Davis tipping off Marc Colombo, heads up, don't walk around that corner blind. And so Colombo didn't. Colombo went around the other way and got at the end of the hallway. So Jay Ratliff could see him coming. And now there's two versions of the story. One of them is definitely true. Version A, Marc Colombo walks calmly down the hallway, all 6'8", 315 pounds of him. Street smart, and street, all rolled into one. And they square up, and he hits him once, and down Ratliff goes. That's story A. Story B is probably the one that Ratliff would prefer to be told, which is that punches were exchanged, that the two of them wrestled, and I do believe that this is at least part of the story, that Colombo had to be pulled off Ratliff before more damage was done to Ratliff. I do believe that version of the story, at least that version of the story, is true. So Colombo's a guy who stands up for himself. So Colombo's a guy who wins his fights. He wins intellectually and he wins physically. He's done it all his life at every level. He doesn't get to win in New York, however, because he is being dismissed. There wasn't really a fist fight. There was a violent tempers thrown back and forth, not violent fists. And again, if you talk to former players or present players, they will tell you, listen, that does happen. Guys get physical. It's a physical sport. You're out there on the practice field all day. You're hot and you're sweaty and you're bothered. And sometimes offense does something that offends defense. Those guys conflict. Sometimes opinions are different. It's the same thing with you and your friends. You go out and play on a basketball hoop out in the driveway against your best friend or against your brother. And at some point, does somebody elbow somebody? They do. It happens. And then the other somebody responds with a shove, and the next thing you know, the two of you start wrestling. So that can happen with best friends. That can happen with brothers. It can happen with coaching staffs too, and it does. It doesn't sound like that's exactly what happened here with the Giants. Of course, if you're the Cowboys, you want the Giants coaching staff to fall completely apart. And if you're a Cowboys fan now, you're probably anti-Jason Garrett. You would like Jason Garrett to be part of the fall apart. The Giants at 3-7, shockingly, have a better record than the Cowboys do. So, of course, by the way, on the other hand, and thanks for listening and subscribing, by the way, I always like to mention that. We are closing in on 11,000 people now in very short time. Cowboys Nation, enjoying what we do here, and I enjoy you in return. So thank you again for hitting that subscribe and hitting that bell and spreading the word. If you're a team tank kind of guy or an organic tank kind of guy, you're probably glad that the Giants have their third win. And you probably hope that the Cowboys keep a lid on their 2-win season. We shall see. We'll be at Minnesota to explore that, and I'll be with the Cowboys on that trip. And we'll be at the stadium, at the hotel, the whole shooting match all weekend in Minnesota. So make sure you check in with us all weekend long, as you do all week long here on the Fish Report, Cowboys and Mavs channel too. Mavericks coverage, by the way, as well. NBA draft and trades and free agency. And believe me, we are all over that as well. So the moral to the story here is, yes, coaching staffs conflict. Yes, guys get in fights, but an actual physical fight did not happen here, probably because Joe Judge has a college education and he's too smart to do that. But it is worth noting that, and I'm friendly with Colombo, and so I'm not going to change this view, no matter what stories of this version come out. There won't be as many. It won't be as juicy as the Jay Ratliff. The Jay Ratliff, either one, whichever story you believe, they're both juicy. But know this: I want Marc Colombo in my corner. As a friend, I want him on my coaching staff. Is he seasoned enough to be in charge of everything? I guess maybe not, but I want him on my coaching staff. I think he's bright, and I think he's tough, and I think players respond to him. In fact, I know they do. It certainly happened here. I do have a call into Marc Colombo to try to confirm that the violent part of this story is untrue, that tempers flared but not fists. But for now, and for me, I'll take Marc Colombo's side, and if I'm ever in an alley fight, I'll take Marc Colombo on my side. Fish at the Cowboys headquarters at the Star in Frisco, out.